Christmas, a time for family, joy, and, well, for me, it's a performance. The perfect wife, the doting daughter-in-law. My husband, Mark, thinks it's all real. He loves his family, and he loves me loving them. This year, my in-laws' house was a monument to festive cheer, from the wreath on the door to the scent of pine and cinnamon that clung to the air. My mother-in-law, Carol, was in her element, bustling around the kitchen, her apron dotted with flour. She was a woman who lived for these gatherings. For years, I've played my part beautifully, a role I perfected since I met Mark in college. I'm the kind of woman who knows what she wants and how to get it, and what I wanted was a life of comfort and stability, which Mark and his family's wealth provided. I saw the way Carol looked at me, a little too fondly. She genuinely believed I was the sweetest thing. It was a testament to my skill, a small private victory. The evening was unfolding exactly as I'd planned. A lavish dinner, sparkling conversation, and the feeling of superiority that comes with being the centerpiece of someone else's happiness. Then, Carol did something that threatened to unravel my entire performance. After the dessert plates were cleared, she came out from a back room, her arms laden with brightly wrapped boxes. "A little something for everyone," she announced, her smile reaching her eyes. My heart sank. This wasn't part of the plan. I hadn't prepared for this. I had spent weeks curating my gifts, expensive, perfectly chosen, a demonstration of my good taste and thoughtful nature. I had worked hard to be the one who gave the best gifts. This was a direct, unintentional challenge to my narrative. As she started handing them out, my mind began to race, calculating the best way to regain control. My perfectly constructed facade was beginning to crack. It was time to act. Hey, if you're enjoying the drama, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every chapter of this story is a new video, so you won't want to miss what happens next. The first person to open a gift was Mark's younger sister, Sarah. She pulled out a beautiful hand-knit scarf. "Oh, Mom, you shouldn't have," she exclaimed, her voice full of genuine delight. My blood boiled. It was a beautiful scarf, obviously made with care and time, something I couldn't possibly compete with. My carefully selected designer handbag for her suddenly felt hollow, a piece of consumerism against a labor of love. Next, my father-in-law opened a box to reveal a new set of gardening tools, the ones he'd been talking about for months. He looked like a kid on Christmas morning. It was clear Carol had been listening, really listening, to what everyone wanted. The room was filled with the soft sounds of tearing paper and exclamations of joy, each one feeling like a personal attack. My turn came. Carol handed me a small, unassuming box. Inside was a framed picture, a photo of Mark and me on our wedding day, taken at a quiet, unposed moment. It was a beautiful shot, capturing a raw emotion I rarely let show. My smile was genuine, for a fleeting moment. Then I saw a small, ornate jewelry box beside the picture. I opened it to find a vintage locket. "It was my grandmother's," Carol whispered, her eyes shining. "I wanted you to have it." It was a genuine gesture of love, a connection to their family history, something I felt no right to. It wasn't about the monetary value, it was about the sentimental one. This was a level of intimacy I was unprepared for. I smiled, thanked her profusely, and put on the best performance of my life, all while a cold plan began to crystallize in my mind. She was winning this silent competition, and I couldn't allow that. I waited until the gift-giving had died down and the conversation shifted to mundane family topics. I excused myself, pretending to go to the bathroom, and instead, I made a detour to the living room where my meticulously wrapped gifts were under the tree. My gift for Sarah, the designer bag, stood out next to Carol's hand-knit scarf. My gift for my father-in-law, a pricey decanter set, felt sterile next to his new gardening tools. This was my moment. I returned to the dining room, a determined look on my face. "Everyone," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. "I have something to say." All eyes turned to me. Mark looked confused, a slight frown on his face. I put on my most sincere, and therefore most manipulative face. "Carol's gifts. They're just too much," I began, my voice trembling slightly, as if with emotion. "They're so personal, so thoughtful. We can't possibly accept them." Mark's face went pale. Sarah looked at me, her brow furrowed in confusion. I kept going, building momentum. "They're just too perfect, and honestly, they make all our other gifts look... well, they make them look like we didn't put in the same effort." I saw the seed of doubt beginning to grow in their eyes. I was preying on their vulnerability, their desire to be seen as equally thoughtful. "I think we should all return them. It's just not right to accept something so heartfelt." It was a masterful stroke, a subtle yet powerful manipulation. I framed their thoughtful gifts as a burden, a kindness that was too great to bear. And then I waited. My words hung in the air, a thick, uncomfortable silence settling over the room. Mark was the first to speak. "Honey, what are you talking about? Mom spent so much time on these." His voice was low, laced with concern and confusion. I turned to him, my eyes wide and pleading. "I know, baby. That's exactly my point. Her gifts are so beautiful and personal, they make me feel like I didn't try hard enough. I can't live up to that." It was a classic move. I was making my own inadequacy a virtue, twisting the situation so that my refusal was a sign of humility, not spite. Sarah, a sweet and gentle soul, looked down at the scarf in her hands. "I guess I see what you mean," she said quietly. The others, caught between my manipulative plea and their genuine joy, looked at each other, their faces a mix of confusion and guilt. The spell of the evening, of pure, unadulterated Christmas cheer, was broken. The warmth had been replaced by a chilling discomfort. I knew I had them. My father-in-law, always the peacemaker, looked at Carol, then back at me. "Well, if you all feel that way..." He trailed off, his voice lacking its usual boisterousness. Carol, my seemingly impenetrable mother-in-law, just stared at me. Her expression wasn't angry or sad. It was something worse. It was a look of profound, dawning understanding. She saw me for who I was, and the look of disappointment in her eyes was a physical blow. The gifts were set aside, the genuine joy drained from the room. I had won the battle, but at a cost I was yet to comprehend. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're only a few chapters into this story, and things are about to get even more intense. You won't want to miss the fallout from this Christmas dinner. The rest of the evening was a disaster. The conversation was strained, the laughter forced. The gifts, once a source of joy, were now a symbol of my spite, sitting in a sad pile on a side table. Mark tried to make small talk, but his heart wasn't in it. He kept glancing at me, his eyes asking questions I was unwilling to answer. The drive home was silent, the festive music on the radio a cruel mockery of the mood in the car. I tried to start a conversation, a casual, "Wasn't that nice?" But Mark just shook his head. "You really hurt her feelings, you know," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "You hurt all of us. What was that all about?" I feigned ignorance, then indignation. "I was just trying to be honest, Mark. Her gifts were too much. Can't you see that?" He didn't respond. He just stared at the road ahead, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, a chasm growing between us. The silence in our apartment was deafening. The gifts I had so carefully chosen, now under our own tree, felt like monuments to my ego. I went to bed, a bitter taste in my mouth, but not from the Christmas cookies. It was the taste of victory, but it was a hollow one. The next few days were awkward and distant. Mark was colder than I had ever seen him. He was a man who prized loyalty and family above all else, and I had attacked the very core of what he held dear. He kept trying to call his mother, but she wasn't answering. The guilt, a sensation I was not accustomed to, was beginning to gnaw at me. I tried to justify my actions, to myself and to him, but each excuse sounded weaker than the last. The perfect life I had built was showing its first major crack. A week passed with minimal contact from Mark's family. My calls to Carol went straight to voicemail. My texts were left on read. This was worse than an angry outburst. It was a silent, complete withdrawal. The isolation was beginning to feel suffocating. Mark was still distant, working late, coming home and retreating to his study. Our usual easy banter was gone, replaced by a strained formality. One evening I found him on the phone, his voice low. I caught snippets of the conversation. "I don't know what's wrong with her, Mom. I'm so sorry. I just don't understand why she would do that." My heart, for a fleeting moment, ached. I had miscalculated. The emotional fallout was greater than I had anticipated. I thought I could control the narrative, but the narrative was now controlling me. I tried to apologize to Mark, to explain my behavior. "I was just stressed, honey. It was Christmas, and I felt like I was being judged." The lies tumbled out, but they sounded fake even to my own ears. He just looked at me, his face impassive. "No," he said, shaking his head. "That's not it. You were jealous, weren't you? You couldn't stand that her gifts were so much more meaningful than yours." His simple, honest observation was a blow. He had seen through my carefully constructed lies, and the truth was ugly. I was a fraud. My perfect life, my perfect husband, my perfect in-laws. It had all been a performance, and the curtain had just come down. For the first time, I was genuinely scared of losing the life I had worked so hard to build. The final crack in my world came with a call from Sarah. Her voice was firm, no longer the gentle, quiet tone I was used to. "We're not celebrating New Year's Eve this year," she said simply. "My parents aren't feeling up to it, and Mark isn't coming either. He told us he needs some space." The words hit me like a physical punch. Mark was putting distance between us. He was choosing his family over me, the woman he had vowed to love and cherish. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I was alone in our big, silent apartment. The Christmas lights on our tree seemed to mock me, twinkling with a cheer that was no longer present in our home. I felt a cold knot of dread tighten in my stomach. I had always been so good at getting my way, at manipulating situations to my advantage. But I had failed to account for one crucial factor: true human connection. The gifts I had given, once a symbol of my superiority, now felt like a heavy weight. I looked at the expensive watch I had given Mark, a beautiful, useless object now. It had no story, no heart. It was a purchase, not a gesture. I realized that my life had been a series of careful purchases, of curated experiences, of a perfect image. But an image isn't real. My in-laws, with their simple, heartfelt gifts and their genuine love, were everything I wasn't. They were authentic. I had tried to destroy their authenticity out of my own insecurity, and in doing so, I had exposed the hollowness of my own life. I had nothing but things, and in the end, things meant nothing. Are you ready to see how this all ends? Make sure you've subscribed to the channel to get notified when the final chapters drop. The conclusion to this story is one you won't want to miss. The following days were a blur of tears and self-recrimination. The silence in the apartment was my constant companion. I tried to talk to Mark, but he was unreachable, a ghost in our own home. He was polite, but his eyes were empty. One evening, as I was sitting alone, he came into the living room, a stack of papers in his hand. "I'm going to stay at my parents' place for a while," he said, his voice flat. He was holding divorce papers, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Mark, no, please, I'm so sorry, I cried, the tears finally flowing freely. I'll do anything. I'll call them, I'll apologize, I'll beg. My carefully constructed composure had shattered, revealing the desperate, frightened woman underneath. He looked at me, a flicker of something in his eyes, not anger, but deep sadness. It's not just about the gifts, honey, he said, using the affectionate term that now felt like a relic from a different time. It's about what you said. It's about how you twisted a kind, loving gesture into something ugly and competitive. It's about how you broke my family's hearts. I don't even know who you are anymore. He was right. I had forgotten who I was. Or maybe I never knew. I had been so focused on the role I was playing that I had lost myself completely. I watched him pack a small bag, his movements methodical and detached. He was leaving, and it was my fault. I had pushed away the very people who had given me a place to belong. The life I had so carefully crafted was crumbling before my eyes. The following weeks were the hardest of my life. I was truly alone. Mark was gone, and my calls to his family went unanswered. The perfect life I had so fiercely protected was in tatters. I spent my days walking through our apartment, a hollow shell of a home, surrounded by expensive, meaningless things. The vintage locket, a forgotten symbol of connection, sat on my nightstand, a constant, painful reminder of what I had lost. I had no friends to turn to, because my entire social life had been built around Mark and his family, or people I had collected to enhance my image. I had pushed everyone away, and now there was no one left. I decided to go to Carol's house, unannounced. The front door, usually a beacon of warmth, felt like an insurmountable barrier. I knocked, my heart pounding in my chest. Carol opened the door, and her face, usually so open and welcoming, was guarded. I looked at her, and the words I had rehearsed vanished. I'm sorry, I stammered, my voice cracking. I am so sorry. I was so stupid, so incredibly selfish. The tears started to fall again. This time, not a performance, but a genuine outpouring of remorse. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't make excuses. I just stood there, letting the raw, ugly truth of my actions hang in the air between us. Carol didn't say anything for a long time. She just looked at me, her gaze steady and unwavering. The silence was agonizing, but I deserved every second of it. Finally, she sighed, a deep, tired sound. "What you did was cruel," she said, her voice quiet. "It was cruel to Mark, to Sarah, to your father-in-law, and to me. But I'm not going to pretend I don't see your pain." She stepped aside, a small, tentative gesture. "Come in. Let's talk." The house felt different, quieter, but the scent of pine and home was still there. We sat in the living room, the pile of returned gifts long gone. I told her everything, about my insecurities, my fear of not being good enough, my desperate need to control every situation. It was a confession, a laying bare of a soul I had kept hidden for so long. She listened patiently, her face full of a compassionate understanding I didn't deserve. We talked for hours, not about forgiveness, but about understanding and the long road to change. I left that evening, not with a promise of reconciliation, but with a fragile hope. My life with Mark and his family was not instantly fixed. It would take a long time to rebuild the bridges I had burned. The consequence of my actions was not just a broken marriage, but the loss of a family, a true home I had recklessly thrown away. I had traded genuine connection for a fleeting sense of superiority and ended up with nothing. But as I walked to my car, the cold December air biting at my skin, I felt a strange sense of clarity. My perfect life was gone. But maybe, just maybe, I was finally on the path to becoming a better person. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. The story may be over, but the journey of learning from our mistakes never is. For more powerful, true-to-life stories, be sure to subscribe to the channel and join our community. Your support means the world.